Hi, this is North County PC Solutions, and today we're going to take a look at changing out some memory modules in a standard ATX tower case. Bear in mind the usual precautions. You need to follow all your safety rules for electricity. You're going to unplug the machine. You're going to discharge it by holding down the power supply or the power button in the front for like 30 seconds. And when we open up the case, the first things we're going to do is zap any static electricity out of our fingertips by touching the power supply inside the case. On this case, it's kind of nice. We don't even need a screwdriver. It's a nice tower, and it has like the finger type of screws in it. So we're going to start by opening up the case. NCPS, we've also done a video on how to clean out your tower, and if you're changing out a memory module or some other hardware component inside the machine, that's a good chance to seize that opportunity as well. In this case, I've already wiped it down, and I've already blown out the inside a little bit just so it's easier to see this video. A couple things you'll notice on this tower: it's got a really nice setup. Instead of IDE, it uses the SATA drives, which have smaller cables, and they've already used zip ties on these power supply cables. It provides a cleaner inside environment, and it also provides better airflow, which means you're going to keep your system cooler. Okay, so let me get in there a little closer to the memory modules. Okay, we got a little closer view here now of the machine. We've actually tilted it down on its side, and it's usually easier for working on anything that's attached to the motherboard. Pretty much anything in general, actually. It is a little constricted here. I kind of lied. It is a clean setup as far as clearance of the power supply. The wires, the way they flow, it doesn't block this from circulating, and it doesn't block the power supply fan from flowing. It does kind of block the memory modules a little bit, but it's not that hard to get around this. So having said that, to get these out, there's little clips on each end. After you unclip both sides, you want to pull straight out. And by the way, I already grounded my fingers on the power supply, so I know I didn't show that step, but okay, these pull straight out, and you generally, this one has the clips, but generally you want to hold it from the sides. You don't ever want to touch these pins. You could potentially damage something, or even the secretions from your skin, the oils, can actually have an effect on these memory modules. If they are dirty, if you're using used memory modules on a machine or something, a cool way to clean them is to use a clean rubber eraser on the back of a pencil, a regular number 2 pencil. It's kind of a neat little trick. There's solvents and stuff as well. These are pretty nice memories. These DDR3s or Kingstons. It's a pretty reliable type of RAM. This brand is pretty reliable, and is pretty much the industry standard for techs that are replacing memory. So we're going to pop the other one out the same way. Again, there's this clip on each end. Okay, and a little bit of a tight fit there. And so this one had a total of 4 gigabytes in it. It had 2 sticks of 2 gigs each. And on this one, since it had a total of 4, we're quadrupling it. And you'll note too that typical of ATX boards, there's 4 slots for memory. You have 2 banks of 2 slots. So typically you'll want to put your first pair in 1 and 3, so it'll be closest to the processor is number 1, skip 1, and the next one over would be slot 3. You'd use 1 and 3 if you have 4 slots. And then your second pair, if you have 2 sets of memory, would go in 2 and 4, just to make sure you don't have any compatibility issues. Generally, you want to buy your memory in pairs or all together. Memory is a very funny thing. You can have the exact same specs, the same brand, same model, and just being a different lot number can sometimes cause a conflict with memory. It's gotten more forgiving on the newer machines, but as a rule, it's a good idea to do your research and buy your memory all at the same time to avoid any conflicts. Different lot numbers, styles, architecture, the chips on them. Another brand that myself I've had pretty good luck with is the Crucial. They're not quite as widely popular and accepted as Kingston. Kingstons are generally pretty much the industry standard for memory replacement by people that build their own machines and stuff. These are the brand Crucial, which seems to be another pretty reliable brand. Pretty much they'll work most of the time without any hassles. This is the ballistic ones, so they're kind of a little extra snazzy. Some of the things you want to check on here is when you're comparing RAM is whether or not they're error correcting. It has the ECC on there if it's error correcting, which simply means it has an extra bit on there for parity and stuff. Typically most regular towers, consumer machines, they won't have error correcting. They'll be non-error correcting. Pretty much error correcting is only used in like higher end stuff like servers and stuff. So we're just going to use regular DDR3 non-error correcting, and we have 4 sticks of 4. So this machine, when we're done, should have a total of 16 megs of RAM in it. You can see when you install these that there's only one way it can go in by the pinout here. You can see this little notch here, and there's slightly more pins to the right than there is to the left. And you can look down here on these little guys, and you can tell that there's only one way they can go in. So you'll know which direction they go in right off the bat. And I bought these in pairs. So I'm going to put the first pair in slot 1 and slot 3. And the second pair, even though they look identical, I'm going to put in 2 and 4 for a total of 4 slots in here. And like I said, on the newer machines, you don't really have to worry about that as much, but it's just kind of a good habit to be in case you ever are working with older machines that are a little less forgiving. Okay, so having said that, let's go ahead and pop these in. The hardest part is that you want to come straight down. You don't want to bend or flex these boards at all, or you can damage the memory. And you'll hear a snap. Both ends snapped in. And you really got to get as flat as possible, then just snap, snap, keep them completely level. Okay, so we're going to skip slot 2, and we're going to go to slot 4, or slot 3, I'm sorry. And I wasn't paying attention, and I did it backwards, so this can happen to anybody. Memory is one of the easiest upgrades to do, and it's quite often it's one of the most beneficial ones. Generally, memory is real inexpensive. A lot of it can change rapidly. It's one of those markets that pricing can change rapidly. Some of the things that dictate pricing on memory is how current the technology of the memory is, and I have a wire that I cannot see. It's actually getting in the way, so what we're going to do, put that under the clip. Now, that back up later. And turn this over. The big marketing thing, believe it or not, with memory is quite often the weather. If there's a big storm in Malaysia or Thailand or Singapore, memory will probably go up for a while because some of those factories get wiped out. So it's best to just keep your eyes peeled and watch the prices, and it'll eventually come back down. A good range is probably about a 2 gig stick is around maybe 15-20 bucks, give or take a little. It varies, but that's a pretty good price to expect. Okay, so as we were saying before, the next pair is going to go in slots 2 and 4. Double checking the notch there, make sure it's on the correct side. And since I didn't pull a memory out of this one in the first place, I got to open the clips up. I forgot to do that. Hardest part about memory is just your finger dexterity, really. It's pretty cut and dry. Okay, when you're selecting your memory, one of the things to remember that is if it's a store-bought computer like a Dell or an HP or whatever, you want to go probably just by the brand, make, and model of the machine. It gets a little trickier if you buy the motherboard and you build the machine yourself. At that point, you kind of got to go off the specs on the motherboard. Usually, nowadays, a motherboard will come with a little booklet that's about a 1/4 of an inch thick. And you have to find the memory section there to find the exact specs on what you can use with it. As of this video, most computers, modern computers, are using what they call DDR3. It's a pretty fast memory, and it's really reliable. But some video cards and stuff are actually up to DDR5 right now. Okay, we got that 4th stick in there, and that's pretty much it. We pulled out the old memory, put the new ones in. Again, be very careful in your memory selection. If it's a store-bought brand name computer, pretty much just go off the make and the model of the machine. And it's a little trickier when you get a motherboard and build the machine yourself, because you have to go off the specifications of the motherboard instead. And you really got to look up the motherboard carefully, because quite often there will be 10 motherboards that sound almost identical in name, maybe one letter changed. And again, with memory, even if they have the same name and type and everything, just a slight difference in the lot number or anything can change the architecture enough to sometimes have problems, especially on older machines. But in this case, we're pretty much good to go. We pulled out the old memory, we put the 4 sticks in. So instead of 2 sticks of 2 at a total of 4, we have 4 sticks of 4. We got 16 gigs in here now, so we quadrupled the memory in this that quick. And it's a lot of times one of the fastest ways to speed up a machine and upgrade it. The reason why is when your computer runs out of memory, it uses something called a paging file. It starts accessing your hard drive as additional memory. It reads and writes to it, creates a virtual buffer. Whenever you're using something that rotates like a disk drive or a hard drive, it slows down the processes of the computer. You're actually having to physically move an object to where memory is pretty much the speed of electricity. Solid state memory is always going to be faster than a hard drive unless it's a solid state hard drive. So when you start tapping out your memory, your computer gets hungry. It has to access the hard drive as a buffer or page file. It's going to slow your machine down a lot. And if you have a lot of extra programs that run in your startup in the background and stuff, this can happen really easy. Having said that, this is pretty much done. All I have to do now is put the side back on and hook the tower back up with all the cables and stuff, and then we're going to give it a try and see how it works. Okay.